My wife cheated on me with our business partner, and now she's claiming half of the $800, $0 company I built from scratch. What do I do when she's also trying to take our house, worth $600, $0, and the settlement could ruin me? I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, but here I am, trying to piece together a nightmare I didn't see coming. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I never expected to discover the kind of betrayal that would shatter everything I built from nothing. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon when I decided to check my email during a break. I usually don't bother because I trust my wife, Lisa, completely. We've been together for over 10 years, married for 6. We built a small but prosperous business from scratch, an engineering firm that's now worth close to $800, $0. I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into that company. It was my dream, and Lisa was always supportive, or so I thought. That day, I noticed an email notification that I hadn't seen before. It was from an account I didn't recognize, something about a late-night chat. My stomach clenched, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was just a friend or a client. But then I saw the subject line, "Can't wait to see you tonight." The sender, my business partner, Mark. My mind froze. Mark and I had worked together for years, but I never suspected anything more than a professional relationship. I opened the email and my blood ran cold. The tone was intimate, flirty, suggestive. They were planning to meet up after hours to discuss the new project, but clearly more than that. I immediately knew they'd been sneaking around for a while. I stared at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. My wife Lisa was cheating on me with Mark, the guy I trusted most, the guy I shared my dreams and my business with. My hands shook and I couldn't breathe for a moment. I went through her phone later that evening, just to be sure, and found texts confirming what I'd suspected. Flirty messages, plans to meet, even pictures of Lisa in bed with Mark. It was like my entire world crumbled in that instant. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was sleeping with our business partner, the one person I thought I could trust implicitly. I felt a mix of rage, heartbreak, and utter disbelief. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, not just emotionally, but in the most fundamental way possible? I couldn't sleep that night. I kept replaying everything in my head, her lies, the times she brushed me off when I asked if something was wrong, the subtle changes in her behavior. She'd gotten more distant, more bitchy, snapping at me over small things. It was like she was trying to push me away, but I never saw what was really happening underneath. The next day I confronted her. I knew I had to. I told Lisa I knew about the affair. Her reaction was classic, denial at first, then anger. She called me paranoid, accused me of mistrusting her without reason. She said I was overreacting, that she loved me, that Mark was just a business acquaintance, nothing more. But I had the evidence and I wasn't about to be gaslit. She sat there, lying straight to my face, claiming she'd never cheated, that I was just imagining things, that she was stressed, that she'd been working late, that I didn't understand her. But I saw the guilt in her eyes, the way she avoided eye contact, the way she fidgeted when I pressed her. And I knew she was lying. That moment everything changed. My stomach twisted with betrayal and anger. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind raced, trying to process what this meant for everything I'd built. Our relationship, our company, our home, all of it could be gone in an instant. I felt the cold realization that I had to do something, but I didn't know where to start. I just knew that I wasn't going to let her get away with this, not without a fight. The following days were a whirlwind. I started digging into the company's finances, looking for anything suspicious, any signs that she might try to claim a stake in the business. And sure enough, I found her making moves, talking to lawyers, trying to get her name on the company paperwork. She was claiming she had rights, half of everything, just because she was my wife. She even started throwing around the idea of taking the house, which is worth about $600, $0. It was like she was trying to steal my life out from under me, and I was furious. I'd built that house, that company, my entire life from the ground up. And now she was claiming she deserved a piece of it all just because she'd been married to me. I realized I had to protect what was mine, my business, my home, my future. I started planning how to fight back, how to stop her from taking everything I'd worked for. But for now, I was just trying to keep my head above water. The betrayal cut deep, deeper than I ever thought possible. I was angry, hurt, and feeling completely lost. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew one thing for sure. She'd crossed a line, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. After that initial shock wore off, I started to realize just how deep the rabbit hole went. I knew Lisa was manipulative, but seeing her outright lie to my face about her affair was a different level of betrayal. She kept insisting it was all a misunderstanding, that Mark was just a business partner, that they never did anything more than talk about work late into the night. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things because I didn't trust her anymore. But I had the messages, the photos, the emails. It wasn't just my paranoia. I felt sick every time I looked at her bitchy smirk, the way she tried to brush everything off like I was overreacting. She kept throwing tantrums, saying I was ruining everything, that I was blowing things out of proportion. She called me possessive, jealous, insecure. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes. She'd been lying to me for months, sneaking around behind my back, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. I spent the next few days in a fog, trying to figure out my next move. I couldn't believe I was married to someone who would do this to me, especially after all the sacrifices I made to build our life together. I started digging into the company's documents, checking the ownership papers, the bank accounts, anything that could give me leverage. I knew Lisa was trying to claim half of everything, and I had to be ready. One night I caught her going through some of our financial records. I didn't say a word at first. I just watched her bitchy little face tense with concentration. Then I confronted her directly. I told her I knew she'd been trying to game the system, trying to get her hands on my company and the house. Her response, she looked surprised, then angry. "I'm entitled to half," she spat. "We're married, aren't we? That's how it works. I helped build this business too. Don't forget that. You think I just sat around all day? I've sacrificed just as much as you have. Don't try to make me the villain here." I couldn't believe her audacity. She'd been sleeping with Mark, lying to my face about it, and now she was claiming she deserved part of everything because she was entitled. I told her she was full of shit, that I'd fight her in court if I had to. She just shrugged, smirking like she was already planning her next move. That's when I decided I needed a plan, a way to protect myself, my assets, and my future. I started talking to a lawyer the next day, someone who specialized in divorce and business law. I wanted to know what my options were. The lawyer told me that if Lisa wanted to claim a share of the company, she'd have to prove she contributed financially or otherwise to its growth. But I built everything myself, every dollar, every hour, every late night, so I had a solid case to keep her out. Still, she'd try to manipulate the system, threaten a lawsuit, or worse. Meanwhile, Lisa kept pushing, trying to turn the house against me. She started claiming she deserved half of that too, because she was entitled to a life of comfort after all these years. She said she'd take me to court if I didn't meet her demands. The more she pushed, the more I realized I needed to be ready for a war. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my dignity, my sanity, the life I'd worked so hard to build. I started secretly gathering evidence, recordings, bank statements, emails, anything that could help me if it came down to a legal fight. I also kept a journal, documenting every interaction with her, every lie, every manipulative stunt she pulled. I knew she was good at turning things around, making herself look innocent, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. One night I caught her texting Mark again, this time late at night, saying things I can't repeat here. The betrayal hit me all over again. I felt my stomach turn. I realized I was living with a woman who was willing to destroy everything for her own selfish gain. That moment I made a decision. I had to protect what was mine, no matter what it took. I started thinking about how to get ahead in this mess. I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and I had to find a way to settle this without losing everything I worked for. My mind raced through every possibility: court battles, financial traps, maybe even some dirty tricks if it came to that. I didn't want to stoop to her level, but I was prepared to do whatever it took to hold onto my business and my house. And then, out of nowhere, everything changed again. I found out she'd already begun talking to lawyers behind my back, trying to set up a case to claim half of the company and the house. She was actively plotting her move, trying to turn my own assets against me. I felt a strange mixture of fear and rage. I'd been betrayed in the worst way, and now I had to fight not just for my money but for my reputation, my future, my sanity. It was clear this wasn't going to be over anytime soon. I was in for a fight I hadn't expected, and I had to brace myself for what was coming. I knew Lisa was a bitch, manipulative and ruthless, and she wouldn't stop until she got what she wanted. I was determined not to let her win, but deep down, I wondered how much more I could take before I broke. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became how far Lisa was willing to go to get her hands on everything I'd built. I knew I had to act fast, so I doubled down on gathering evidence. I hired a private investigator to dig into her financials and her recent activities. I needed irrefutable proof to show the courts she was trying to manipulate the system. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act, acting innocent, crying crocodile tears, and throwing around accusations that I was paranoid and controlling. One day, I caught her in a lie that confirmed everything. She was pretending to be the victim, saying she'd been blindsided and devastated by my accusations. But I had her on a recorded phone call where she openly discussed her plans with Mark, how they would split my company and take the house. I felt a mix of rage and disgust. She thought she could just lie her way out, but I had her dead to rights. That recording was my ace in the hole. I sat her down that evening, my heart pounding, and played the recording. Her face went pale and she stammered. "That's not what it sounds like," she said, trying to deny it, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I was done playing her game. I handed her the evidence, photos, emails, the recording, and said I was going to fight her in court. Her bitchy smirk disappeared, replaced with a look of pure anger. She snapped back, calling me a control freak, saying I was ruining her life. But I knew I had the proof I needed. From that point on, everything escalated. She hired her own lawyer, and I did the same. The legal battle was about to begin, and I knew she'd use every trick in the book to try to take half of my company and the house. She claimed she deserved it all because she was married to me and that she'd been a partner in the business. That was a load of crap. I built that business from nothing. She never contributed financially, never worked a day in her life for it. She just sat around, bitching and manipulating. Meanwhile, she started making demands. She wanted a divorce, and she wanted her share of the assets. Half of the company, which was worth around $800, $0, and half of the house, valued at $600, $0. She threw in some tears, claiming she was entitled, that she'd sacrificed so much for our life together. I felt like I was living with a different person, someone who'd gone full villain, willing to destroy everything I built for her own gain. I decided I had to protect myself, so I started preparing for the worst. I had the business appraised, made sure all the financials were in order, and started talking to a lawyer about how to shield my assets. I also began secretly documenting her every move, every call, every email, every attempt to manipulate the system. I knew she'd try to spin things her way, so I needed to be ready for a fight. The most shocking moment came when I discovered she'd already contacted some of our clients, trying to turn them against me, claiming I was unstable, that I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go. She was trying to destroy my reputation, all because she wanted to get her hands on my money and our house. It was like she was trying to erase me from my own life. I felt a deep sense of betrayal I'd never experienced before. I'd loved her, trusted her, and now I saw her for what she really was, someone who'd lie, cheat, and manipulate her way to what she wanted. I'd been naive thinking she was on my side. That illusion shattered completely. I kept my composure, though. I knew I had to stay calm, be strategic, and fight smart. I couldn't let her win. I started talking to my lawyer about how to freeze her assets, how to prevent her from claiming anything without proper proof of contribution. I also looked into how to protect the house, because I knew she'd try to claim that too. She was claiming she deserved half of everything, and I had to be ready to counter her every move. It was a whirlwind of legal meetings, late night strategizing, and emotional exhaustion. I felt like I was fighting for my life, not just my money. Every day brought new surprises, more lies, more manipulations, more attempts by her to turn the situation in her favor. The woman I thought I knew was turning into someone I barely recognized, and I was left standing there, feeling like I'd been in the worst way possible. But amidst all the chaos, I started to see a glimmer of clarity. I realized I had to protect what was mine, no matter what. I couldn't let her destroy everything I'd worked so hard for. I had to fight tooth and nail to keep my company, my house, and my integrity intact. I wasn't going down without a fight, not because I wanted revenge, though that was definitely part of it, but because I knew I deserved to keep what was rightfully mine. The legal battle was now in full swing, and I could feel the pressure mounting every day. Lisa's lawyer was aggressive, trying to push for a quick settlement, claiming she had rights to half of everything because she was married to me. But I had my own lawyer, someone who knew the ins and outs of business law, and he kept reminding me to stay calm and not let her manipulate me. Still, every time I saw her bitchy smirk or heard her lie about how much she deserved, I felt my blood boil. One afternoon, I found out she'd been talking to some of our clients behind my back, trying to turn them against me. She told them I was unstable, that I was trying to cheat her out of her rightful share, and played the victim card hard. I couldn't believe how far she'd gone. It was like she thought she could destroy me from the inside out. I knew I had to act fast to protect my reputation and the business I'd built, so I decided to confront her directly again. I set up a meeting not to argue but to get her to admit what she was doing. I told her I had evidence, more recordings, emails, and witness statements that proved she was trying to sabotage me. I told her I wasn't going to let her ruin everything, that I was prepared to fight her in court and expose her lies. Her reaction: she threw a tantrum, screaming, crying, calling me controlling and paranoid. She said I was trying to keep her from her rightful share, that I was just trying to cheat her out of her due, but I wasn't buying her act anymore. I knew she was desperate, cornered, and willing to do anything to get her hands on my money and our house. Meanwhile, I kept digging. I hired an accountant to audit our finances, making sure everything was transparent. I also started documenting every interaction, every call, every message, every lie she told. I knew she'd try to spin things her way, so I had to be ready. Then, out of nowhere, she made her move. She filed papers claiming she was entitled to half of the business and demanded full access to our joint accounts. She claimed she'd been a partner all along, that her contributions, emotional or otherwise, gave her a stake. She even tried to claim she was entitled to the house because she'd sacrificed so much, like staying home and raising the kids, even though we didn't have any kids yet. It was clear she was trying to use every trick she could to get what she wanted. I felt the walls closing in, but I refused to give up. I knew I had to fight for what was mine, and I started preparing for a long, ugly court battle. I worked out a strategy with my lawyer: how to prove I was the sole owner of the company, how to show she hadn't contributed financially, and how to protect the house. I also looked into how to freeze her assets, because I knew she'd try to dip into our savings or transfer money to hide it. The most shocking revelation came when I discovered she'd already begun transferring money from our joint account, trying to hide her assets. I caught her red-handed, and that was the moment I decided enough was enough. I confronted her again, this time more forcefully, and told her I was going to take every legal step necessary to stop her. I started talking openly to friends and family, trying to get advice and support. I was overwhelmed but knew I had to stay strong. Every night I lay awake thinking about how my life had changed so suddenly. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was now the woman trying to rip everything away from me. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about my dignity, my future, and my right to keep what I'd earned. I had to be smart, patient, and relentless. I couldn't let her manipulate her way into my life and my assets. I had to stay one step ahead, even if it meant going to war. As the days went on, her tactics grew more desperate. She started threatening me, saying she'd ruin me if I didn't give her what she wanted. that she'd expose secrets, that she'd make sure I'd never see the light of day again. But I knew she was bluffing. I'd fought too hard for everything I had. I was ready to fight for it all, my business, my house, my reputation. Because if I didn't, I knew she'd just keep pushing, trying to take everything I'd worked for. And I wasn't about to let her do that. The legal battle was starting to consume my life. Every day, I woke up feeling like I was walking on thin ice, waiting for the next move Lisa would make to try to undermine me further. Her lawyer kept pushing for a quick settlement, claiming she deserved half of everything: my company, the house, the savings. But I knew better. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was prepared to fight to the end. One night, I found out she'd been trying to secretly sell off some of our assets, trying to get rid of things that could protect me and the business. She was desperate, and her lies were getting bolder. I caught her red-handed, going through our bank accounts, trying to transfer money into fake accounts she'd set up. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast before she did something irreversible. I immediately contacted my lawyer and filed an emergency injunction to freeze her assets. I also made sure to notify the bank about her suspicious activity. I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go, trying to wipe out our savings, manipulate the legal system, and destroy what I'd built. It was her way of trying to leave me with nothing. Meanwhile, I kept digging into her financials and her dealings with Mark. I found out she'd been receiving money from him, large sums that she hadn't disclosed. It was clear she was trying to hide her assets, and I had proof. I also uncovered some private conversations where she openly plotted to take control of the company and the house. The more I learned, the more I realized how dangerous she'd become. The tension between us reached a boiling point. She accused me of trying to control her, of being paranoid, of not trusting her. She played the victim, crying crocodile tears, claiming she'd been trapped in a marriage where she wasn't appreciated. But I saw through her act. I knew she was trying to manipulate everyone around her, our friends, our family, even the courts. I decided I had to be even more meticulous. I hired a forensic accountant to audit everything: our finances, her accounts, her communications. I wanted irrefutable proof of her deception. I also started preparing for the worst, thinking about how I'd protect the business if she tried to take it away from me. I knew she'd try to claim that she'd contributed equally, even though she never did anything to earn her share. Then, the shocker hit me. I discovered that she'd been secretly planning to move out of the house, trying to leave me with nothing, even if it meant burning everything down. She'd already contacted movers, arranged to change the locks, and was planning to disappear with whatever she could grab. I was furious. I realized I had to put a stop to her plans before she did something irreversible. I confronted her again, more forcefully this time, and told her I had enough evidence to take her to court for fraud and attempted asset concealment. I warned her that if she kept pushing, I'd expose everything: her affair, her lies, her manipulations. I told her I was prepared to fight to keep my company and my house, no matter how long it took. The worst part was feeling helpless. I'd trusted her for so long, and now I saw her for what she truly was: a woman willing to destroy everything I'd built for her own greed. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. But deep down, I knew I couldn't let her win. I had to stay strong, keep my head clear, and fight with every ounce of strength I had. I kept a close eye on her every move, waiting for her next stunt. I knew she was dangerous, and I knew she'd stop at nothing to get her hands on my assets. I also started to prepare emotionally for what might come next: divorce, a court battle, maybe even losing the house. But I refused to give up. I'd come too far to let her take everything away from me. I had built my life with hard work, and I wasn't going to let her destroy it all without a fight. The courtroom days felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every document, every testimony, every piece of evidence I had gathered was laid out to defend what I'd built. Lisa's lawyer threw everything she had, claims that she was an equal partner, that her sacrifices gave her a stake, and that I was trying to cheat her out of her rights. But I had the proof: the emails, the recordings, the bank statements. I knew I had the law on my side, and I was determined to fight for my future. Throughout the proceedings, Lisa's true colors showed more clearly. She was manipulative, lying under oath, trying to turn the judge against me. She claimed she deserved half of the company because she helped with some minor tasks, even though she never contributed financially or strategically. She insisted she was entitled to the house because she'd sacrificed her life for our marriage, despite the fact that I had paid for it outright with my earnings. Her tears, her accusations, her attempts to sway the court, everything felt like a well-rehearsed act. In the end, the judge saw through her lies. The court awarded her a settlement, less than she had hoped, but enough to make her furious. She was ordered to relinquish her claims to the company and the house. Her face twisted in rage, but she knew she had lost. As she stormed out of the courtroom, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. The aftermath was brutal. Lisa moved out, taking a fraction of what she thought she deserved, but the scars remained. I was left to pick up the pieces. I poured myself into rebuilding my business, ensuring everything was above board and protected from her manipulations. I also took steps to secure my home, changing locks, updating legal documents, and putting measures in place to prevent her from trying to come back or cause more trouble. Looking back, I realize how much I underestimated her. I trusted her completely, and that trust was exploited in the worst way. The betrayal cut deep, but it also taught me a hard lesson about trust, boundaries, and the importance of protecting what's yours. I learned that even the people closest to you can hide their true intentions beneath a mask of love and support. Now, I focus on healing, both financially and emotionally. I've come to accept that some things are beyond my control, but I also understand that I have the strength to rebuild. I've learned to be more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of the signs that someone might be hiding their true nature. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Trust is precious, but it's fragile. Protect your assets, document everything, and don't ignore the warning signs. People can surprise you in good ways, but also in devastating ones. And when they do, it's better to face it head-on than to be by betrayal. I lost a lot, but I gained clarity, and that's something no amount of money can buy.